Hi.
Hey Damon, how are you?
Good, man.
Good, man. Thanks for doing this. I know you have to do a bunch of them, I'm sure.
It's okay. It's relatively, it's a good record to have conversations with people. It's not too generic.
Right.
So,
Right. Well, this is cool. I've been listening to your stuff for a very long time, and I was jumped at the opportunity to be able to chat with you about this record, especially. So, thanks for doing it. The record is "The Nearer the Fountain, More Pure the Stream Flows." It's going to be out coming up on the 12th of November. It's it grabs all of my favorite stuff that you have produced over the years and kind of puts it together in this new really interesting flow of songs. I want to talk to you about kind of the origin of the record and what it's supposed to be, and then how we got to what it is now. But tell me about the beginning and what you thought it was going to be in the beginning.
well, I've been going and sort of spending time in Iceland since 1997. In 2000, I had a house built on a peninsula outside of Reykjavik. And it's a very magical place. In fact, so magical that I had to get permission from the fairies to have it built, and the only way you can do that is by employing a fairy lawyer, which is actually a job description in Iceland. So yeah, my attorney employed, I negotiated this piece of land and built this house, which has this most beautiful view of classic Icelandic landscape: mountains, glaciers, volcanoes, sea. And I've stared out that window in awe at all times of year for many times. I suppose it was just a dream to get the opportunity to take orchestral musicians to my house and sit them down and make them feel comfortable and kind of strip away all the kind of preconceptions of making music without anything but what you see outside to react to. I suppose I gave everyone kind of very vague harmonic destinations, but essentially it was like, it was more about everyone learning to trust each other and listen to each other and watch what was happening and not be at all self-conscious about the sounds they were making, and trust in the process. So that's what we were doing, and the intention was to make a fully orchestral piece and play it last year, but obviously that ended in February. So I took the rehearsal tapes back to England and sat on them for 8 months, and then last winter, I suppose, because I was down in the countryside by the sea in England, it was very dark, and I suppose I felt there was a kind of sort of kinship with how I was feeling there, with how I feel in Iceland, and so I embarked on making the record in a very damp, cold, windy, noisy, dusty stone barn in January, which to the poor two other people that made it with me was quite an extreme ask, really, because we had to wear like duffel coats and gloves, and all the old instruments constantly kept breaking down. So I had to get my wizard's electronic friend to drive down like twice a week and fix these old ailing keyboards and drum machines. And we tried to keep the heating going, and we blew the electrics, and there were many reasons why it was it was as kind of unpleasant as any recording studio could be without actually being completely not a studio, and so that's how it was made.
Did you keep any of the original demos? Like, is some of that stuff still?
The piece Essia, which appears twice, is completely intact from the rehearsal tapes. That's what it was.
There's a lot of the record where I found myself playing like, guess what's making that sound? Like, what is the instrument? And I mean, at one point, like the C is actually the instrument. I mean, you can hear.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of sound recordings. One of my friends out there is like Iceland's top field film sound recordist, and yeah, he got involved. I mean, that's the lovely thing about Iceland. It's such a big artistic community. You know, everyone's sympathetic and empathic with each other when it comes to the creative spirit. You know, it's very much defines who they are. So it's easy to find people to collaborate with there, which is really nice.
I felt like at one point maybe I heard a didgeridoo. I couldn't tell, but it may not have been. I did read that the drum machine you have was from the 50s. I didn't know. I'm a drummer myself and have dabbled with some drum machine. I had no idea that there was one made in the 50s, and where you find it.
Yeah, the first one was made by Hammond. Oh no, sorry, it was made by Wurlitzer. That's what I've got. It's a huge, great wooden box with kind of, it's almost like, it's got like cylinders in it, and yeah, it's huge, but it's the most wonderful thing, you know.
Did you know how to use that? It seems like that would be.
Well, I mean, it's not that complicated, but the interesting thing is that, you know, the rhythms that were prominent were all kind of Latin, kind of loungy rhythms, you know. I mean, because that was the kind of music that people were playing, you know.
Right.
Sort of, it's kind of jazz, you know.
Yeah,
jazz,
and you can tell jazz. A couple of the songs have this kind of dancey feel to them in that older style, like jazz dance way.
Yeah. But you know, I was kind of stuck with that, and my friend Mike brought his saxophones down, which was a kind of big decision on my behalf, because I knew once he was stuck on the farm for a month, he'd have to play his saxophone. So I made the decision to have saxophones and old drum machines before I started, and you know, I didn't really have any other option. Once I'd started, I had to kind of go that way, you know, because it was still lockdown and nothing was really going on.
Yeah, the record's very eclectic. I mean, it goes from these like very soothing, you know, organic, natural songs to then these kind of dancier songs that we're talking about, but it still flows in this certain way. And I was curious when I was listening to it if that was like planned, or if the tracks were recorded just kind of all over the place and they just landed that way, or.
Well, it's a mercurial process, really. You know, I think, yeah, I would say I definitely am always thinking about that, but I don't let that kind of sort of stop me from just going off on tangents. And then, you know, I have a few friends who always have got amazing suggestions when it comes to running order of records. So I kind of leave it with them for a while, and then we kind of put it together.
Yeah. The video for Royal Morning Blue reminded me a bit of the video for Tinder from 13. And I liked, you know, how it does the circling around, and it's one of those that you could almost watch on a loop, and it's just this really soothing. It harkened back to that for me a lot, which I love.
Yeah. Yeah, that, I mean, I've got a new record label which I'm really happy about for this record, and they've got a very positive approach to how they present records to the world, you know. And one of the things we decided to do was film the whole record performances, so they're performances of all the songs in that manner, you know. And I'm very lucky. I work with some really, really brilliant, solid musicians. In fact, musicians have sent, apart from Simon Tong, who I know from the Good, the Bad, and the Queen. The rest of the musicians I also work with in Gorillas as well. So I have this wonderful community of people who are as very adept at moving, because I mean they're really polar opposites, Gorillas and this record, but it's the same musicians.
Well, right. Yeah, they're not very similar. But you're able to kind of fluidly transition between genres like that. And I'm curious, is that something that's kind of planned out of like, okay, now I'm going to do this type of record, or is it just more like something that you're feeling, and so therefore you make that type of record?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of sort of just continue making music. I try to make something at least 5 days a week. I'm happy doing it 7 days a week, but that could come across as obsessive.
Right. Got to rest at some point.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if you've seen this, but on Netflix there's a docu-series called This Is Pop.
Right.
And I watched it recently, and I had very low expectations for whatever reason, but I ended up learning a ton. One, like about T-Pain and auto-tune. I don't know if you saw that episode, but you should. But then there's an episode about Britpop and you guys and Oasis. And I don't know if it's just because I was young at the time or because I was in the United States, but I didn't know about any of that. Like, I didn't know that was ever a controversy, if it actually was. Like, I couldn't tell if it was more like a professional wrestling type of deal or if it was real, but I just didn't know there was any kind of...
It was, I would say it was predominantly WWF.
Right.
But there were moments where it was more than that. But I think, I've always really liked both of them, and I've hung out with Noel a lot. So I went to his 50th birthday.
Really? That's fantastic. I was around Liam one time a while back, and he was exceptionally nice. And I remember kind of calling nonsense on his persona at the time. I was like, oh, wait a minute. I think that's probably just part of this PR thing that he has going on, but whatever. That was, one evening. So
listen, it was fun. It was fun. It was playful. But like so many things about Britpop, it was taken far too seriously. I mean, Part Life was a satire,
right?
Not a national call to arms.
Yeah, it was really educational watching that for me.
Yeah.
Having been such a fan of your stuff and of their stuff, I was like, wait a minute, what? Like, I just had no idea that any of that. We just bought all the records.
Oh, it's like, but it's a little country. It's possible to those things to exist. I mean, I can't see that happening in America, really. It's just too big for that,
Yeah.
But I mean, I suppose you could, East and West Coast.
That's true. It was a thing. That was a real thing. People died.
Yeah, no one died in Britpop.
Thank goodness. Yeah, thank goodness. Well, what's next for you? You're going to be able to tour? I know people are starting to dip their toes in the water.
Yeah, I've just come back from LA. Actually, I've been in LA working. So.
Okay, great. Yeah, because a lot of, here bands are definitely touring again, but a lot of our bands from Europe haven't really started coming over yet.
We've had to wait in line. All the American artists have had the first bite of the cherry, but don't worry, we'll be back.
Okay, good.
Try and stop us.
Nice. No, we're not going to try to stop you. We want you to come back.
Nice.
The record again, The Nearer the Fountain, More Pure the Stream Flows. It is coming out November 12th. Yeah, so Damon Albarn, what a pleasure, man. Forgive the mustache. It's Halloween, so this is part of my Halloween costume.
Oh, that's good.
Thanks, man.
Good to you.
Today's my birthday, so I got.
Happy birthday!
Thanks. As a birthday present, I got to talk to you for a bit.
Lots of love.
All right, thanks, man. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.